now I'd like to turn to Greg Cassidy. And Greg is going to start out the Build Along program that we've talked about previously. He and Chris Coarse of Conowingo have gotten together, and Chris offered his kit. Greg is going to build it. And what you'll hear about tonight is the introduction for this build along from Greg and Chris. And you'll find out about the tools and what you need to have in order to build it with Greg as he starts it. So Greg, I will turn it over to you and Chris, sir.
Thank you, Jim. I'll go ahead and do my presentation first. If Chris wants to come on afterwards and tell people how to order the kit, he can do that. Let me start my share. Oh, let me start it at the beginning. And I'm not quite the orator that most of the other people are here, so I'm going to be following a script. Welcome to the New Tracks Build Along. This is the Gray Street House, the company house version. I'm Greg Cassidy. I'll be covering the construction of the kit. This will be done in slideshow format. I'm always taking pictures as I go. I'll also have some info from Geoff about the lighting supplies at the end. Tonight we'll go over the tools and supplies that I'll be using. Not all of them are needed, but most are useful for this and for any other wood kits. First is the glues I'll be using. I use different glues for different applications. These are common glues that many modelers will have laying around. At some point, you'll need to glue plastics together. I like to use the extra thin for gluing acetate into plastic window frames. Glues for wood and paper. There's a large variety out there and many modelers have their favorites. I like to think in terms of the viscosity of the glue I'm going to be using for the application I need it for. The tacky glue is thicker and stronger glue that I use for walls and strong joints. The Elmer's glue all is versatile for gluing a variety of materials together. And the canopy glue is very thin, and I like to use it in applications where I don't need a thick glue, and having it dry clear may help. The super glues are versatile for gluing a variety of materials together. I personally like the Loctite for their dispenser bottles, and I use both the liquid and the gel depending on what I'm attaching. And I want to point out some value pack super glue you can find on Amazon. At roughly $7 a package, you don't need to worry about it if you end up wasting any because you couldn't get the last drop out of the tube. Next, we'll cover the tools I'll be using. All modelers have their favorite tools to use. These are what are usually out on my workbench all the time. You want to use a hobby or X-Acto knife. Make sure you have a few spare blades and that you're starting with the sharp one. I find tweezers useful for holding small pieces of wood when I'm applying glue to them and for other delicate tasks. Even with having a hobby knife, I find single-edged razor blades to be useful, and I always have two next to my workbench. I'll start with a sharp one, and once it's used a fair bit, I'll mark it as being dull and get out a new sharp one. You'll always find lots of uses for a sharp pencil for marking where to cut wood and making nail holes in signs. These are my most used squares. You'll find them especially useful. I also like having an angle guide at hand. And what I think is one of the most important and cost-effective tools is a toothpick. I use it all the time for applying glue and removing glue that's been squeezed out of a joint. This is a variety of sanders, shapers, and measuring tools. Having a variety of sanding sticks is almost essential. You can get by with sandpaper, but it's harder to get straight edges using that. Files can also be handy and in some cases can take the place of sanding sticks. They're coarser and will remove more wood than a sanding stick will. You'll want some form of a ruler or straight edge. They have a variety of uses from measuring items to giving you a straight edge to cut along. I like to have a scale ruler as well as ones that measure in inches and millimeters. I've ended up using a variety of different clamps. In some cases, you can get by with rubber bands or bracing items together with 1, 2, 3 blocks. But there are some cases where a clamp is really the best tool to use. As far as paints go, the sky's the limit in terms of what's available out there. I like to have a variety of craftsman style paints that you can get at art stores like Michael's and modeling paints such as Vallejo that you can get at hobby shops. There'll also be uses for rattle can spray paints. Depending on what you are going to be using them for, you can go with the large cans from a hardware store or modeling spray paints from a hobby shop. For paint application, I have a variety of brushes. These are my favorites that I use most often. And I'll usually just use a coffee can lid as my palette. Have some warm water nearby to wash out your brush, and I do like using a brush cleaner to help keep my brushes in good shape. A paint spray booth isn't necessary, but odds are at some point you'll be using some spray paints, so you want somewhere where we can spray safely and cleanly. You can go outdoors, but then you're subject to the weather. I built this spray booth out of plywood with a fan attached to the back of it that ducks outside. Here I'm going to show some optional tools and supplies that I use but aren't necessary for this build. Some type of magnifier or optivisor. Depending on your eyesight, this may or may not be a necessity. For me, it absolutely is. I tend to use a variety of chalks and pigments for weathering my models, both during the construction and once they're completed. You can pick up chalks at many modeling stores, but I really like to use artist grade pigments. They come in powdered form. You can get these from art supply houses and they're a great value. And you want to have a variety of brushes for application as well. And while it's not necessary, I find having a variety of different strip woods on hand to be useful, especially if you want to do any modifying or scratch building. Now, for the O-scale builders for this build along, you'll have to create the porch and foundation that doesn't come with the O-scale kit. A couple of supplies that you will need on hand for that are some clapboard siding for the porch roof sides and some material to cover the foundation with if you don't want to leave it as wood. You'll also need to have a few sizes of strip wood on hand. The 8x8 can be used for the porch posts, the 2x6 for the porch and back step flooring, and 9x9 or larger for the actual foundation. Also some stairs and stringers if you don't want to make your own. Now these are the lighting supplies that Geoff suggests would be useful if you want to include light in the house. In the upcoming build episodes, he will cover his techniques for adding that. What you have here is wire of 28 to 38 gauge, roughly 4 to 6 feet. Some white LEDs, 3 millimeter, warm, sunny, or any white. You can use as many as you want. Geoff will be using 2. Resistors at 680 ohms for a quarter watt for 12 volt power, or 220 ohms, quarter watt for 5 volt power. And you'll want some thin cardstock or an old box to enclose the light. I will put all of these websites in the chat window after my presentation. That's it for the tools and supplies. If anybody has any questions.
Greg, go back a minute to the O-scale version. Where would people go to get the foundation covering that you talk about? And also, where would they go to get the stairs that you mentioned?
All right, the foundation covering, there's a variety of different materials out there that either look like brick or can look like rock work. What I happen to have in O scale is from Plastruct. You can find it at any hobby shop that carries wood and evergreen and Plastruct siding. As far as the clapboard siding, you should be able to find that again at any hobby shop that carries any of this type of wooden siding, or you can search online. There's a variety of websites that sell this. I tend to order it from a hobby shop that's up the road from me. But you have your large hobby places like Hobby Link and Mount Albert and some other places where you can get this siding from. And the same thing with the strip wood here and the steps and stringers. You should be able to find strip wood at any hobby shop that carries this kind of wood product. The stringers and steps, the O scale ones that I have came from Steve Milley at Rail Scale Models. But almost any company that sells O scale craftsman kits probably offers some form of steps or stringers, something like that. I know there's 3 or 4 different model manufacturers that offer that in O scale.
Thank you.
Greg,
Yeah, go ahead.
you might also consider, folks, if you're doing O scale, or if you want stone instead of brick or whatever, textures and print it on your inkjet printer, which you then need to overlay with Krylon. I know Clever Models has them, and I'm sure there's other people, and there's probably free websites that have brick textures or rock textures or whatever you want to use. And of course, you can scale that on your computer to whatever you want.
Yep. Thank you, TC. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to end my share.
Okay. Greg, thank you so much. Chris, I'd like for you to comment a little bit about ordering the kits and that kind of thing. Because Greg is going to actually start the build the 3rd of March on our show, the 3rd of March. So you have between now and then to get your kit ordered and get it in the mail. So I'll turn this over to Chris if you'd like to talk about ordering and so forth for a minute.
All right, I just put the email or the website address in there for ordering it. And now I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, we'll go over this real quick here. Maybe if this computer cooperates, there we go. Okay, so as we all are aware now, this is the build along is a collaborative build. We're going to start out with the Gray Street house, and then we're going to move on to other projects after that. If you want to order this kit, the primary version that we're going over is the HO scale version, and it's been dubbed the company house version. Because it does strongly resemble a company house that you would see in coal country. The build begins March 3rd at 7 p.m. Eastern, and Greg is heading it up, and Geoff Bunza is going to chime in from time to time and help us a little bit should we decide to add some light to it. I thought that was a great addition. This HO scale version includes a foundation, a front porch, a back step. It's got tar paper roofing. And as mentioned a little bit earlier, it is also available in O scale. However, when I came up with the company house version, I wasn't expecting the O scale guys to take so much interest. So I apologize for that. But it's going to turn out to be a little bit of a scratch building project for the O scale guys. So hopefully that's a happy accident. So this is basically what we're going over is we're going to go through the preparation first. Greg already talked about your tools and your glues, and then we're going to head into some planning your design elements for it, what you want to do with it, some lighting options, and A neat little topic that applies very well with this house is the research, because I actually looked at houses in Chesapeake City, Maryland, and there are a ton of these houses. Not one of them looks anywhere near as small as this one does, because the footprint on it is, I think what they did is they taxed by the width of the street that you took up. And so basically you might have a house that's 10 feet wide and it's huge in the back. So that was to keep the taxes down. But anyway, so we'll go over that and some neat things that have happened with those houses in Chesapeake City. Give you a bunch of different ideas of what you could do with the kit. Week two will be bracing, where we're going to talk about bracing the walls, and then also some considerations for LED and wire placement. Week three, Greg's going to head right into painting, talk about the roofing, the walls, painting your doors, windows, strip wood, and you're going to have to do a little bit of sealing to prevent light leakage, so that this one light, let's say you put one light in there, you don't want it to glow like the sun, and so they're going to show you a few tips and techniques to prevent that from happening. Week four will be the main assembly, installing the doors and windows, assembling the building itself, and then putting the porch roof on, or putting porch roof together, I should say, installing those lighting options, and doing some window dressings for lighting effects. And that's actually another category that I kind of like, because different window positions kind of are a sign of life. So that we're going to talk about that a little bit. And then the last week will be roofing and finishing touches. Going to fit the roof on, do the roofing itself, powering the lights, and then finishing touches, little odds and ends here and there that need to be taken care of. So anyway, we've got two different versions, the HO scale and the O scale version. You need to order now. It looks like maybe in the last couple of days, the post office is starting to catch up. But still, if you want to get this kit and have it in time to join us on the build, please get that order in as soon as you can to conowingomodels.com. And we'll begin our build on March the 3rd.
Fantastic. Thank you so very much, Chris and Greg. I really do appreciate it. Let me mention something too about the O scale one. Since that's the scale that I model, I'm a little concerned about that one. If there's O scale manufacturers that make the steps and make the foundation materials and that kind of thing, that would like to offer some kind of special deal for the people that are ordering Chris's O scale version of this, if you'll let me know, I'll be glad to include you in the discussion about this. Because if there are manufacturers like Rail Scale or whoever, you know, that have the parts and so forth that the O scale modelers are going to need, then if they know exactly where to go to get it, and that, you know, it would fit their needs for this build, I think that might be a good thing to offer. So if you O scale manufacturers are out there and want to participate with this, just please let me know, and I'll include you in the next discussion of this build.
Yeah, maybe I can talk to Steve Milley about putting together a basic kit for the scratch builders, for the O scale guys.
I think that would be great, and then
N scale.
I can't see N scale.
Ah, come on.
These glasses aren't for looks. I wish I could. I don't have any. I really don't have anything to support N scale, because I'm not even sure who makes doors and windows and all that stuff for it. But I like what you're thinking, because it's a lot smaller than carrying these big O scale kits. They're huge.
All right, then.